Somewhere in your kitchen, there may already be a jar of something alive, quietly bubbling, waiting for a purpose. And if there isn't yet, there will be soon. Because today, we're not making a fancy loaf. We're not making something with a dozen exotic ingredients, or a technique that takes years to master. We're going back to the single most basic bread a human being has ever made. The bread every other loaf in this series is built on top of. 3,000 years ago, God gave a prophet a very specific instruction for surviving a siege. 6 humble ingredients, combined into one loaf, meant to keep a body alive on very little. That instruction became the blueprint for what we're making today. Not the dense, complicated survival loaf itself, but the simplest, most forgiving version of it. A basic country bread, built the ancient way, that you can make with your hands, your own living starter, and nothing else. By the end of this video, you will have made a loaf of bread using a process that hasn't fundamentally changed in thousands of years, and you'll understand exactly why this particular loaf became the foundation this entire channel stands on. This is the definitive guide to the Ezekiel Basic Country Bread, and it starts with a man told to lie on his side in front of his entire city and bake. Ezekiel chapter 4 is one of the strangest, most physically demanding assignments given to any prophet in Scripture. God tells Ezekiel that Jerusalem is coming under siege, and rather than simply warning the people, he instructs Ezekiel to act it out, publicly, with his own body, for over a year. He is told to lie on his left side for 390 days, bearing symbolically the sin of Israel, and then on his right side for 40 more, bearing the sin of Judah. During all of this, he is rationed an extremely limited amount of food and water each day, exactly the deprivation the besieged city would soon experience. And in the middle of these instructions comes the verse this entire channel is named for. Take wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt. Put them in a storage jar and use them to make bread for yourself. Ezekiel 4:9. Not a feast, not a celebration meal, a single, dense, deliberately humble loaf, made from whatever was on hand, combined together, and eaten sparingly, day after day, for over a year. Here's what's easy to miss reading this quickly. Ezekiel didn't get to choose an easier assignment. He didn't get to swap in more forgiving ingredients, or bake something lighter to make the ordeal more bearable. He worked with exactly what was available, mixed with intention, and made it last. And somehow, across over a year of extreme physical deprivation, that bread sustained him. That's exactly the spirit behind the loaf we're making today, even though this version is far gentler than what Ezekiel actually endured. You're not going to be rationed. You're not lying on your side for a year. But you are going to learn to make one basic, reliable, humble loaf using nothing but flour, water, salt, and a living culture you've already grown or are about to grow. And once you know how to make this one loaf well, you have, in your hands, the same foundational skill that sustained an entire ancient world. Every other bread on this channel, the barley loaves, the fig and honey bread, the 7-grain siege loaf itself, all of it comes back to the technique you're about to learn today. Before we get to the method, it's worth asking a simple question. If this loaf is really this basic, why does it feel so unfamiliar to most of us? The wheat itself is different than it used to be. For thousands of years, wheat varieties like einkorn, emmer, and spelt stayed largely unchanged, tall and modest in yield, but consistent in how the human body processed them. Modern wheat breeding, aimed at higher yields and shorter growing plants, produced a grain with a noticeably more aggressive gluten structure than anything the ancient digestive system ever encountered. That's not a reason to fear all wheat, but it's a reason to understand that basic bread doesn't mean what it once meant. The fermentation got cut out. For nearly all of human history, every basic loaf was leavened slowly, with a living wild culture, over many hours. Commercial yeast, mass-produced starting in the 19th century, made it possible to skip that slow process almost entirely. A loaf that once needed 12 to 18 hours to develop could be forced to rise in under 2. What got lost in that shortcut wasn't just flavor. Slow fermentation is what breaks down some of the compounds in grain that make it harder to digest. and partially pre-digests the gluten before it ever reaches your body. Skip the slow rise, and you skip that entire process, and the flour got stripped down. Industrial roller mills, which became standard in the late 19th century, could separate grain into its components in a way older stone mills never could, removing the bran and germ where most of the mineral and vitamin content actually lives, and leaving behind refined white starch. What's sold today as basic white bread bears very little resemblance, nutritionally, to what a basic loaf meant for most of human history. Put those three shifts together, and you start to understand why so many people who feel fine eating a properly made sourdough loaf still feel uncomfortable after a slice of ordinary supermarket bread. It was never really the same food to begin with. Here's the good news, and it's a genuinely simple one. None of what got lost is actually gone. The wild yeast that leavens real bread is still in the air around you right now. Whole grain flour, the kind that still carries its bran and germ, is more available today than it's been in decades. And the technique itself, the one you're about to learn, hasn't changed. It's the same basic process a household in ancient Israel would have used, adapted only slightly for a modern kitchen. You're not learning something new. You're recovering something that was never actually complicated to begin with, just quietly set aside. This is the technique that everything else builds on, so we're going to go through it carefully, stage by stage, and I'm going to tell you exactly what you should expect to see, smell, and feel at each point, so you're never guessing whether something's gone wrong. Before you start, you'll need an active, bubbly sourdough starter. If you haven't built one yet, that's a separate video on this channel, but the short version is this. Your starter should have roughly doubled in size within 4 to 8 hours of its last feeding, and it should smell pleasantly sour, not sharp or unpleasant, before you use it. If yours isn't there yet, feed it once more and give it another cycle before you begin. Stage 1. The autolyse. Combine just your flour and water in a large bowl, nothing else yet, no starter, no salt. Mix by hand or with a wooden spoon until there's no dry flour remaining. It will look rough, shaggy, a little unappealing. That's exactly right. Cover it with a damp cloth and let it rest for 30 minutes. During this rest, the flour is quietly absorbing water and the gluten is beginning to develop entirely on its own, without any kneading from you. This single resting step is what makes the rest of the process so much easier than people expect it to be. Stage 2. Adding the starter and salt. After that 30-minute rest, add your active starter and your salt directly on top and mix everything together thoroughly until it's fully incorporated. The dough will feel noticeably stickier now. Resist the urge to add more flour to compensate. That stickiness is normal at this stage. Cover it again and let it rest another 15 minutes. Stage 3. The stretch and fold. This replaces traditional kneading entirely, and it's far gentler on your hands and your schedule. Wet your hands lightly so the dough doesn't stick to them. Reach under one side of the dough in the bowl. Stretch it upward as far as it will comfortably go without tearing, and fold it over the top of itself. Turn the bowl a quarter turn and repeat the same motion, top, bottom, left, right, like folding a letter into an envelope. That's one full set. You'll repeat this every 30 minutes, 4 times total, over the following 2 hours. Each time you come back to the dough, you'll notice it's grown smoother, more elastic, easier to work with than the time before. That's the gluten quietly organizing itself, one gentle fold at a time. Stage 4. Bulk fermentation. After your final set of folds, cover the bowl and let the dough sit undisturbed at room temperature for 4 to 8 hours, or overnight if that suits your schedule better. You're looking for the dough to roughly double in size and feel airy, almost jiggly, when you gently shake the bowl. This is the long, slow, unglamorous part of the process, and it's also the part doing the most work. This is where flavor develops, where digestibility improves, where a plain mixture of flour and water genuinely becomes something else. Stage 5. Shaping. Turn the risen dough out onto a lightly floured surface. Fold the top edge in toward the center, then the bottom, then the left and right sides, the same envelope folding motion as before. You'll now have a bundle of folds on top and a smooth surface underneath. Flip the whole thing over, so the smooth side faces up. Using both hands cupped around the dough, drag it gently toward you across the counter. You'll feel the surface tighten slightly as you do this, almost like pulling a sheet taut. That tension is exactly what gives your finished loaf its shape and structure in the oven. Stage 6. The cold rest. Place your shaped dough seam side up into a lightly floured bowl, cover it, and refrigerate it overnight, or for at least 4 hours. This cold, slow rest does two things. It develops a deeper, more complex flavor than a same-day bake ever achieves, and it firms the dough up enough that scoring and handling it becomes dramatically easier. Stage 7. Baking. Preheat your oven, along with either a Dutch oven or a baking tray with an empty roasting tin beneath it, to 500 degrees Fahrenheit for a full 30 minutes before baking. Quickly check any plastic knobs on your Dutch oven lid, since some are only rated to 400 or 450 degrees, and swap for a metal one if needed. Tip your dough directly out of its bowl, either onto parchment paper or straight into the hot Dutch oven. The seams that were facing up will naturally land on the bottom, and the smooth side will face upward. No extra work required on your part. Score the top with one confident, decisive slash. Cover with the Dutch oven lid, or, if you're using a tray, pour a cup of boiling water into the roasting tin beneath it and close the oven door quickly to trap the steam. Bake covered for 20 minutes, then remove the lid or roasting tin, drop the temperature to 450, and continue baking another 20 to 25 minutes until the crust is a deep, rich mahogany brown. Stage 8. The hardest instruction in the whole process. Let it cool completely on a wire rack for at least 1 full hour before you cut into it. The inside is still setting as it cools, and cutting too early collapses everything you just spent the better part of a day building. Listen for a faint crackling sound as it cools. Sometimes bakers call this the crust singing. That's steam escaping and the crust contracting, and it's one of the small, quiet signs that you did this right. Here's everything laid out together, so you can follow along start to finish. Ingredients: 360 grams whole grain flour. Spelt is the most accessible and forgiving choice for a first attempt. Roughly 3 cups. Though weight matters more than volume here, since scooping technique can throw off your measurements significantly. 100 grams active. Bubbly sourdough starter, roughly ½ cup. 250 grams warm water, roughly 1 cup, held back slightly if your dough feels overly wet. 1 teaspoon sea salt. A quick note on hydration. Spelt has a more delicate gluten structure than modern wheat, so this recipe intentionally uses a lower hydration than you might see in other sourdough recipes, giving you a dough that's far more manageable for a first attempt. If your dough feels unworkably slack or overly sticky the first time through, simply reduce the water by 20 to 30 grams the next time you bake. Method: in brief, combine flour and water only. Rest 30 minutes. Add starter and salt, mix thoroughly, rest 15 minutes. 4 sets of stretch and folds, 30 minutes apart, over 2 hours. Bulk ferment 4 to 8 hours, or overnight, until roughly doubled and airy. Shape, then cold rest overnight or at least 4 hours. Bake covered at 500 for 20 minutes, then uncovered at 450 for 20 to 25 minutes more. Cool completely, a full hour minimum, before slicing. What comes out of your oven will have an open, slightly chewy crumb with a genuine tangy depth that store-bought bread has never once achieved. It will smell earthy, faintly sour, and deeply satisfying in a way that's hard to describe until you're standing in your own kitchen smelling it yourself. It doesn't taste like convenience. It tastes like something that was actually made by you, with time and attention, the way this loaf has been made for thousands of years. A few quick fixes, in case your first attempt doesn't come out exactly as expected, because it often doesn't the first time, and that's completely normal. If your bread didn't rise much at all, your starter likely wasn't active enough when you used it. Make sure it has genuinely doubled in size after a feeding before baking with it, and give it another cycle if it hasn't. If your finished loaf feels like a brick, extend your bulk fermentation by 2 to 3 hours the next time. Ancient grain sourdough is naturally denser than commercial bread, but it should never feel outright heavy. If your crust came out too thick or too hard, reduce your uncovered baking time by about 5 minutes and cool the loaf on a wire rack rather than directly on a solid surface, which traps steam against the bottom crust. And if the inside came out gummy, it was almost certainly cut too soon. Always wait the full hour. I know it's difficult. Wait anyway. Ezekiel didn't get to choose easier ingredients. He worked with wheat and barley, beans and lentils, millet and spelt, whatever was actually available, combined with care, and made it sustain him through more than a year of hardship. What you made today is a gentler descendant of that same instinct: flour, water, salt, and a living culture, combined patiently and trusted to do what it's always done. This loaf is not complicated. It never was. It only looks that way because we spent the better part of a century convincing ourselves that bread needed to come from a factory to be reliable. It doesn't. It needs time, a little attention at the right moments, and ingredients that haven't been stripped down to something the human body barely recognizes. Master this one basic loaf, and you have, in your hands, the same foundation that sustained prophets, fed families through famine, and fed an entire ancient world one humble jar of flour at a time. Everything else on this channel builds from here.